What's up, everybody? This is Lance. I am the host of the Health and Real Estate Podcast and also have a school community that is the Health and Real Estate School Community, where we focus on health made simple and lead gen made fun. And today I have a very special guest, one of my favorite people in real estate. I'm a big fan. We have Linda McKissack. She has two podcasts that I'm a regular listener to. It is Everything Life and Real Estate podcast and also the Profit Share podcast. She is the author of a few books. I have one of them right here, The Profit Share Advantage. She is the the number one earner in profit share at KW. Last I checked, I think it was a lifetime earnings of 16 million. I'm sure it's a little more than that now. And she really inspired me into profit share with KW. And she was also featured in one of my favorite books, 10x is easier than 2x. There's like a whole chapter with Linda McKissick. So I really want to dive into that, and she started her own 10x breakthrough challenge this year. I was a part of the very first one back in March of this year. So there's so much to get into, Linda. But first, how did you get started in real estate?
Okay. Well, actually, it all ties together, Lance, because I feel like, I'm a faith based person. So I feel like God gives us a journey for a reason, and there's always purpose in everything that happens in your journey. And I always like to say, usually the worst thing in your journey that happens to you can wind up being the best thing that ever happened to you. And that's truly the case in this scenario. My husband in the late 80s was and early 90s was owned restaurants and nightclubs in Dallas, Texas, actually Denton, Texas, and Dallas. And we had gone to, he had great aspirations to go into Dallas. We were in a college town, Denton, and he had done extremely well. And he decided he wanted to go to Dallas and, build a kind of mini Dave and Buster's, if you will, and do that in Dallas, where obviously it's the place to go if you want to hit it big, right? So he went to Dallas, built a big restaurant similar to Dave and Buster's, but on a smaller version, had billiards and different things like that, and food, and literally just worked himself to death to make it work. But what was stirring that we didn't realize was Texas was about to hit one of the worst economic downturns it's ever seen and ever seen since, to be honest with you. And I always like to call those graduallys and suddenlies, Lance. And the funny thing is, part of what I try to teach people is to understand they're just part of life, and they can be the worst thing that happened to you, or they can wind up being the best thing ever happened to you, depending on how prepared you are for them, what you've done to prepare in case they happen, and all of that stuff. So that's what happened. It literally overnight, he wound up selling that business for $600,000 less than we owed against it. I always like to say I was only in my mid 20s, had never gone to college because no one in my family had ever gone to college. So it didn't even enter my mind that college was an opportunity. But I'm a hard worker, and I had had menial jobs, literally only making minimum wage unless I waitressed or bartended for one of his clubs, and then I could make tips and make more money. So he had suggested, you know what, Linda, you love to learn. Why don't you go to college, because I'd never gone, and figure out, what you want to do. And so that's what I was doing. I was helping him in the evenings. I was going to school during the day. And then all of a sudden, the bottom just falls out. And I always like to say, the in life, you're going to get an opportunity to have a 10x goal, either by life happening to you, in this case, gradually and suddenly, or you're going to learn over the years to use it as a tool and a strategy to actually create a big life for yourself. And so the first one that happened to us it was forced on us. Literally, we went to bed one night, woke up the next day. I always like to say, jumping 2 feet high in a 10-foot hole with no way to get out, right? And so all of a sudden, we had to have 10x goals, because 2x goals were not going to get us out of the situation that we were in. So my husband, you know, really struggled, to be honest with you, because at that point, he had already put 20 years into that industry. And in any time you're going to make a change or do something different, it's extremely hard. So I knew something was wrong. And like I always say, I was in my mid-20s, so I didn't even know what the word economy meant. Is it a good one or a bad one? I didn't know either one, but I knew something was wrong because Jim's stress level was super high. I always like to say he liked his Crown Royal back then a lot more than he should have. And he just was stressing every night because he said, I don't want to go to bed because when I go to bed, morning comes too soon. And when morning comes, bankers call. And so I always say under anger is fear, and there was a lot of anger and fear going on in our house. Each of us wanted one of us to do something to solve it, but we wanted the other person to do it, right? And so in our one of our conversations, he said, I need your help. And I said, I'm a hard worker, but what am I going to do to make this kind of money? I mean, literally, I've never made more than minimum wage unless I waitress or bartend. And he said, when he was a boy, his dad was not around much. And so he had a mentor that would come pick him up and take him to Pee Wee football. And so probably Jim was probably around 10 or 12. And this mentor said to him, Jim, if you ever want to make a lot of money, real estate's the way to do it. Now I'm laughing because Jim's 10-year-old brain heard just the word real estate, and when we were in this situation, his solution was for me to sell real estate, which is what he thought the guy meant. We grew up to realize that the man really meant buy some real estate, invest in real estate, build some real estate. Although I do have to say, Lance, there is no better cash flow opportunity than real estate sales, in my opinion.
Mhm.
So it was a good fit. And so he suggested I get into real estate. Now, not only had I not gone to college, I'd never lived in a house that we owned growing up. I don't know what realtors even do. So I said to him, well, I don't even know how to do this. And he said, well, they'll probably take some of your college credits that you've already gotten and you'll take a few more classes and then you'll take a test and you can be a realtor. And I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty easy. I can do all those things, right? Um, and sure enough, Lance, not in the beginning because I only made $3,000 gross my first year because, um, I've been in this is my 40th year in the real estate business. Back then, there was no training, there was no education. You literally were handed a license and here's a desk, here's a phone. Good luck, you're on your own. And that's why most people quit, to be honest. And honestly, Jimmy didn't come clean with me, but he had had his license twice and hated every second of it. I'm
Mm.
really glad he omitted that part to me and didn't bother to tell me that so he could taint my view. But mixed with my tenacity, my hard work, ethic, it was a good fit and our situation, because when you're in that kind of situation, you're going to find answers. And like I say, your 10x goals are going to come true because you're not going to stop until they do. So we began to read books. I began to do a little better. I found a trainer and people that could educate and help as you and I both believe in training and education.
Mhm.
It's a shortcut to get where you want to go. And I found people who could help me do that and just started applying whatever they told me to do. And we read books. And at that time, Lance, the books were saying that the wealthy people in the world, the ones who don't get affected by graduates and suddenlies as much, one of the things they do is they buy stocks, they buy real estate, or they buy they own businesses. Now we had just gotten through owning a business and didn't feel real good about it, so that wasn't an option. And I was starting to sell real estate, and so I thought, okay, selling, I'm going to do that. But I think they mean buy it. Kiyosaki meant buy some. So we literally sat down and wrote a plan while we were $600,000 in debt to buy 20 properties in the next 5 years and have them paid off by the time Jim was going to turn 60 and he was 39 at the time. That's what we did. And I always like to say, and you heard me say this in my challenge, there are places that when you give yourself a big challenge or a big opportunity that your brain it goes to work. I also think God kind of helps you come
Mhm.
up with solutions on how to solve that problem or that challenge. And that's what happened. I woke up I found a property, came home all excited about it. Jim immediately poo pooed it and said, we don't have any credit, no money. We can't buy this. How are we going to buy this? And my place is sleep or running. When I'm sleeping or running, I can tend to come up with a solution or see an opportunity that I couldn't see before. So when I woke up the next morning, one of my builder's names was on my brain. And I thought, he'll do it. If I go ask him, he's got the money, he's got the credit, and he can also fix it up. And sure enough, Lance, he did the first three properties with us as a partner. And we were off to the races. And then within probably about 5 years, we got all that debt paid back and we were back to, didn't have to file bankruptcy. So it didn't take us a long time to get back on our, credit worthy
Mm.
group. And then we just started realizing that if another gradually and suddenly came, which several have since then, we were going to be in a different position. We were going to be someone who, and we were going to work for the next whatever amount of years to get more leverage in our life, more freedom, more passive income, and all of those things. And so, really, that's kind of been our whole journey is to continue to set 10x goals that feel impossible, that take courage, that scare you to death because you don't even know how you're going to accomplish them. And then get to work on figuring out how you're gonna accomplish those, and then you become a new person, and you get a whole new level of confidence, and the trick, as you learned in our challenges, there's another place we go to after we do something like that, and it's called comfort and complacency, and the trick is don't stay there very long. Go find that next big scary commitment. Go ahead and make it, know what's involved in all of that, and know how to understand that this is a strategy and a tool that you can use over and over again to build the biggest life possible that you want. So that's how I got into real estate. Became number one. I became number one in the 1/4 of 1% of sales in the United States, and got recruited by Keller Williams, and then immediately became their number one agent. And but realized, quite honestly, freedom is a super important value for me. And so I could see the writing on the wall that a lot of people would spend 30 and 40 years in this business, Lance, and they wouldn't have freedom and they wouldn't have anything to show for it when they finished. And I didn't want that to be my story, either one of those. So I started saying yes to big goals and big opportunities and big challenges.
Yes, I love your story. Thank you so much for sharing. And you were forced into that situation when you were
Yes.
so you were forced to 10x in that
Yes.
instance. And but it was beautiful because you turned your mess into your message moving
Yes.
forward. And I remember during the challenge, you mentioned a story where it was like when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. So I remember you were 600,000 in debt and you went to a real estate conference and there was an
Yes.
agent that spoke and he
Yes.
did 600,000 in GCI that year. So I remember you're like, we need to go see him. And you
Yes.
said you're like following him around and like roller skating with him or something. But
Yes.
could you tell that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, there's certain strategies that work in life. And one of them that I think people miss a lot, Lance, is when you have something that you want to do, the first problem we have is and the reason it takes courage is because we typically don't know how to do that, right? And it's the how that actually gets us stuck. Most people get stuck in the how. And what I always say is there's always a who's already done what it is you need to do. The only thing you need to do is figure out how to get in their proximity, whether you have to buy their course, whether that you have to, you know, follow them on Facebook and Instagram and all the things you can to get all the free knowledge from them you can. In this case, we met him. He was up on stage and he had literally grossed $600,000 in commissions. And Lance, back then that was unheard of. He
Mm,
was like number one or number two in the Remax in the world. And that was unheard of because nobody had ever even broken, $1 million mark back then, right?
mm,
And so that was just something that blew all of our mind. And my instinct is who knows how to do this? That's my first thought is who already has done this that I can get in their proximity and figure out, ask them how they do it, and then go do what they tell you to do, right? And so
exactly.
that's why we attacked him. And yes, and it's funny today because he's now our business partner. We own some commercial buildings with him. We own a beach house in San Diego, I just told you about. Um, I always like to tease and say now he calls and asks us for our advice. So you just never know where those relationships are going to go. But yes, Tony was a big help in the fact that he had already done what we needed to accomplish. All we needed to do is ask. Would
Mm,
he be willing to share some ideas with us? Would he be willing to help us not make some of the same mistakes that he's made. So, yeah, that's how we immediately found somebody who was doing the exact number and commissions that we needed to do. And a lot of times, Lance, it's just that it opens up your brain to possibility. No one had ever. I mean, I think our mega producer in our city at that time was, maybe had ever been a $3 million uh, sales, not commission, you know? And so it was just not something my brain could even conceive until we got and heard all those people on that panel that were doing tons of transactions and making large amounts of commission.
Definitely. And I know a big thing about the 10x is who, not how. Where if you don't know how to do it, partner with a who does know how to do it. And
Well, and
that's
that and also the bigger your 10x goal, who's different who's are going to be. Some are support who's, some are people that are going to do the things that pay less or dollar per hour so you can do the more dollar productive stuff, and some are who's that are better than you. And so depending on how big your 10x goal is, the more important who's are going to be and the level and talent of who's will need to be.
exactly. And two examples in your situation was you just shared when you were in that debt and you found a property to rehab,
Yeah.
you didn't have the capital or the credit or or whatever to do that deal, but you found a who to partner with to do that
Yes.
deal with your the builder. And then also, you were one of the first people to get an assistant in real estate like several years back. So that's another who uh
Yeah.
to open up your time to do the more the bigger cost or the bigger activities.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you were just a trendsetter before all that. Now all the big teams and everything, it's the model in that book right there is the
Yeah,
first hire,
exactly.
get an assistant.
I always like to say when that before that book was written, we were in the mastermind with Gary before the we call it the red book was written. I always like to say I was at level 5 before I ever even met Gary. I just didn't know I was at level 5 because no one had ever named it and claimed it like he was about to do in the MREA book.
Mhm.
So we had somehow accidentally gotten to level 5 and didn't even know it was level 5 because no one had named all the different levels in real estate up until that point.
Yeah, just by taking massive action and just failing forward, I'm sure everything wasn't super smooth. You just learn and keep going. So
Yeah.
yeah, you have 10x your life and business multiple different ways, and there's some examples in the book. But how did that even transpire? Like becoming in the book? Did he reach out to you, or what? How's
Yeah.
that even work?
Yeah, and it's real funny because I really still don't really know who gave him my name, but yeah, Dr. Benjamin Hardy was, had decided to go in with Dan. He had approached Dan and said, "Hey, your concepts are amazing, and some of these I really think should be mainstream books." Because up until that time, honestly, Dan Sullivan's books are these little bitty books that he writes every quarter. They're not mainstream books, and Ben had always been a writer and approached Dan and said, "I think we could collaborate together." And Dan said, "Well, because Dan is such a believer in you stay in your lane, right?" He said, "That's a great idea. You go do it." And meaning he has not involved with any of it other than his brain, right? And so somehow, I don't know how, um, Dr. Benjamin Hardy heard my story or knew. I don't really even know, to be honest with you. I need to ask him one of these days, how did my name actually come up? But he reached out to me, and I think he interviewed a bunch of people, to be honest with you. If I probably guessed the way Dan probably did it, they probably gave him names,
Mhm.
and he probably interviewed a bunch of people and then narrowed it down to I don't even know how many of us are in the book, but the few of us that are in the book. So I think that's probably how it happened. But again, it was another blessing because it forced me to remember that 10xing is a tool, and we should continue and making big commitments that we have no idea how to do them is a strategy for life, a strategy for building big businesses. And once we can change our brain and look at that, then all of a sudden you start to feel convicted when you're sitting in that comfortable spot for too long in complacency. And, in our industry, Lance, a lot of people say, "I'm burnt out, I'm stuck." And I believe they're burnt out and stuck because they're still riding on that success that they had, and inside they're yearning to be someone else, to become a new person, a person who is different than the one they are right now, but they're scared to let go of the identity that they currently have, and that's what you have to do. You have to be willing to risk your reputation, to risk your success, risks and things to reach up and become a different person. And I say this all the time. I mean, I wouldn't trade who I've become for anything in the world on this journey, right? Because I'm a complete different person that chased that man down at that conference, right? And so I think if people could grasp that and Ben Hardy says it so well and Be Your Future Self Now and in some of his books, but there is an I and humans are wired this way, but for some reason, we tend to wanna push it down and squash it and think it means more work. But I think the real joy is in trying to see who can we become while we're here? Who can who all can we become while we're here? And I don't think any of us have any idea, and so we just have to get up every day, and I always think I told in the challenge, Gary said to me one day, Gary was coaching me and Keller, and he said, I said to him, I said, "I'm so conflicted because I don't know. I always just want to achieve more and go out and, try to achieve more, but I've got people in my life that number 1 don't understand it about me. And number 2, I've got people in my life that I'm trying to get to be that way and they won't seem to do that and I'm kind of stuck. And I know there's an answer, but I can't see it, right? Can't Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees because you're in it." And he said to me, Linda, life is about becoming. And the way that you become all that you can become is you go out into the world every day and you see what else it is you can achieve. Sports teams don't win one Super Bowl and go back to the wherever they go, field house gym, wherever they go to, and quit. No, they go back out and train some more to see who else they can become. And that was such a freeing thing for me, Lance, because I think for people who are I think we're all naturally wired to grow and achieve. But for some of us, you may have people in your life telling you, why can't you just sit down and be happy? Why do you have to keep wanting to do more? I mean, all those things. And so it makes us tend to think that it's a bad thing. But I think it's the way we're wired as humans. And I think we're better off to go with it than continually fight it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm definitely wired that way. One thing what was in your challenge that helped was, yes, like we want to do more, more, more and accomplish, but you want to reflect on the small wins. You want to
Yes.
celebrate the small wins. And that's something I struggle with.
Yes.
So, yes, that was in the challenge. And I love that part of it. So, yeah, you were in the book. It was super cool. It gave like 2 or 3 different ways where you continually 10x your life and business. It was one through your real estate business,
Yep.
then through was it through building a team?
One was through building a team. One
Then
was through
through
turning my team over, which no one had done in the industry either, which was terrifying. I have to be honest.
and then saying
Um,
yes to opening a region, market centers.
yes. Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
that was amazing. I love that story. And it was kind of cool because I've been following you and a big fan of you for a long time, especially with the profit share. And then I read that book. I've been following Dan Sullivan for a while in the online marketing space. It's such a pleasant surprise to see like 2 of my worlds colliding in the best way, like seeing you in there. I was like, "What?" It was so cool. And then shortly after, you started a 10x breakthrough challenge. And I was a part of the first one. So I'm curious, what inspired you to do the 10x breakthrough challenge?
Well, because, if you're gonna preach 10x, you gotta do 10x. But no, seriously, over the years, Lance, I think we're all humanly wired to help other humans, and I think our journey, and I think it's Roy Vaden that says you're most prepared to serve the person you once were, and I think you're also most prepared to take people on a journey that you've gone on yourself, right? I love this industry. I see lots of holes in it. I mean, I was just on a call with a group, very successful realtors not too long ago, and I can just feel their pain because they've gone so far without really, stepping into the next opportunity or preparing for an exit from this or whatever, and they're just struggling. There's nothing feels worse than doing work that you love because you have to, not because you want to, right? And so, what happened over the years is I would have people call me and I would spend as much time as I could over the phone because I love it. I think as humans, we're wired. to get joy and significance from helping other people. But over time, an hour here and an hour there adds up. And so I would always get requests for one on one coaching, but one of my highest values is freedom. And so how could I commit to an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day where I'm on the phone all day long? That would just squash my freedom, right? But I love helping people. And so over the years, I would think, how can I do this without, I don't want to be an hour a day, 8 hours a day or whatever, a coach, but I love helping people. And so I would get more and more requests to, can you coach me? Can you coach me? And I just would have to say no. The only people I would be able to coach is the people that were already in my world, in business with me and those kind of things. And then all of a sudden, when the book came out, I got even more requests from people that I had no idea who they were. And I would spend an hour, I would do my best. And then it just got to be where I'm like, okay, God, I get it. You want me to 10x. Oh, you want me to 10x again. And so I knew nothing about the online space. I knew nothing about how to build a challenge or how to build a group or, how do I do this in such a way that I get to fulfill that piece of me? I get to help other people, but I'm not uber restricted, right? So I do what I tell everybody else to do. I found the best coach out there. I paid the big bucks because when you pay attention. And
Mhm.
the more you pay or the more I pay attention. So I paid this guy big bucks and I joined his group. And then I was committed. I set a date, had no idea if a single person would do it, and just said, you know what? God, I feel your nudge and I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to do it. And so that's how it all started. I love it. We've got a great group going right now. Matter of fact, I have a call this Thursday with them and I can't wait. I love it. And so it's like, and it's funny because, um, it was a 10x for me because I had, I think we talked a little bit about this in the challenge. Sometimes the more successful somebody gets, the harder it is to put yourself out there to 10x because we tie our reputation to succeeding or failing because we think, well, the whole world's watching. I mean, all those things that all of us have limiting beliefs around. But I just said, I made the commitment. I'm going to move forward with it and I'm going to fail my way forward because that's how you do everything. And nobody likes to do that, but that's the true path and journey. And I have found my way forward at it. But, I've had enough wins to be convicted that it's the right space and where I need to be and what I need to be doing. So now it's just a matter of not quitting until till I, you know, accomplish it at the level I wanna accomplish it at.
Absolutely. So I was a part of the first one. I loved it.
That's
And are
awesome.
you doing these monthly, these breakthrough
We
challenges?
actually, we're doing them. I think it's winds up being like once a quarter. My next one is the 2nd week in June, so it's coming up. And we decided to back them off and do just once a quarter. And we've recorded most of the trainings, the modules for the trainings, and so when people join, they can go on and watch all those from the back. But yeah, it's once a quarter. It's 4 days. People can take it as many times as they want to. And my whole goal with it, Lance, is I wanted to make sure that, and it's not, as you know, it's not that much money to join the challenge. I wanted to make sure that when they joined, when they got through, they got so much value because my biggest fear was I'm highly responsible, super responsible. Part of why real estate was such a stress for me is I could never leave it at home. But it was just super important to me that when they left that challenge, they felt like they got so much value because I didn't want anybody to spend, first of all, their most precious asset, their time, and then their second most precious asset for them probably is, or second or third is their money. And so I wanted to make sure that we delivered on that. So it's great fun doing it. I love it, and our goal is just to make sure they get so much value by the end of the week that some of them want to continue.
Can attest to that. I got so much value from it. I was so excited for it too. Like I woke up every day for the challenge, so giddy. I woke up like it was Christmas morning. I was like, oh, so like hype. And then
Yeah.
just the caliber of people that were in that community. It was like the
Yes.
big people.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So I might have to do it again.
Yeah.
And
Feel free.
you actually inspired me to do my own challenge too. So I'm
Yay.
watching the challenge in June as well. And because my big thing is health and real estate. So like you said,
Yes.
you see a couple big holes in the real estate industry.
Yes.
And I believe health is one of the big ones. And
Yep.
also lead generation. I feel like a lot of agents don't consistently lead generate. So that's
Yes.
the whole thing behind my community. And, my tagline is health made simple, lead gen made fun.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going for. And that's what my challenge is going to be about. So I'm terrified starting it. It's my first one. So any tips or advice?
You know what? That's a good thing because that will force you to bring the value to the people who do trust in you for those 4 days or whatever amount of days you're doing it. Mine's 4 days. I don't know how many days yours are. But you know what? And, just know that there's certain, you know, formula to success, and part of it is just committing and starting to take action before you're clear on if it's the right action, and that's where most people don't wanna do it. But when you stay in something that's your passion and that you've lived and that you're and as passionate as you are about health and our industry, um, first of all, I told you right off the bat, this is a huge gap that's needed so much in our industry. I think I was the most unhealthiest when I was selling the most a couple hundred homes a year because I had no time to eat right. I didn't have time to get the education on how to eat right. Back then, all the stuff they told you was wrong also.
Mhm.
So, but the stress level of this business, because you cannot just leave it at the door. It goes to home with you, it goes to bed with you, it wakes up with you. And, when you learn about health, stress is one of the most key factors that you have to get right besides food and exercise and all those things. And who has time to exercise or takes the time to exercise when you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, which was what most of us do in the real estate business when we're that busy.
Yeah, 100%. And I know you're super into health and wellness now. So like I'm trying it's funny. So on a previous podcast episode, I had a guest on and he was like, health and real estate. He's like, I feel like that's like mixing oil with water. It just doesn't go together.
True. So
So
true.
what would you tell the agents out there who like to prioritize their health? How can we get real estate agents to think more clearly on prioritizing their health?
Well, and I can't remember exactly how the story goes, but it's the story of the man who has all of these goals and dreams, but then he loses his health and he has only one. I mean, you can't serve all the people you serve if you don't take care of you, if you don't have the energy, and somebody's getting cheated on the energy. And if you're winding up putting it all out during the day, then your family's getting cheated at night because you're too tired to do what you want to do with them. So I would just say if you love serving people, which most realtors do, the way to serve them best is to have the most energy, the best health, and longevity. And you can't do that unless you pay attention to your health and you make it as important of a factor as lead gen and learning to hire and all the things we have to learn.
Yeah, 100%. I think the saying something along the lines of a healthy person has hundreds of problems
Yeah,
and one healthy person only has one problem. Because when you're not healthy, like nothing else matters. You could have these very important meetings, cancel them, reschedule them. Like literally, health is all that matters. I actually told there was a bold coach I had on, and I was like, you guys need a new bold law, something about health. And I was like, dude, health is wealth.
yes, that's great. I like that, Lance. I hope you get that to go through.
Yes, I'm pushing for it.
Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah, what are a few health tips that you would recommend and that have been beneficial
Wow.
for you?
I would say number one is the food. I spent so many years eating the wrong foods, messing up my gut over the long term, not understanding about processed oils and not understanding about, carbs and sugar and all the things that quite honestly just will wreck your health. And over time, it will actually it will stop you. You won't be able to do anything of what you do because you don't have the energy to do it. So I would say food is number one. And for
Couldn't
me,
agree more.
yeah, for me, and believe it or not, you have to be the CEO of your own health because all of us are different, and you can't just say, "Oh, this is a cookie cutter thing, like be a vegan or be a carnivore or be a this." You got to learn you. And for me, I had to go all the way to carnivore to get my gut to heal, to get my body from, being messed up all the time with autoimmunes, things like that. And so you have to be the CEO of it yourself. You can't expect one person or one person's plan or cookie cutter thing to work for you because it might not, right? And I think more and more every day, people are having messed up guts, and I would say food. So get food right first. Exercise definitely is something that's kind of been easier for me because of the stress of real estate. I needed it as a relief from the stress of real estate. So I've always, for years, I was a runner. And now it's, either hit training or zone two training or something like that. But I've stopped beating myself up on the pavement as much, but I do still run, in a treadmill class and do things like that. But I mean, if you can only do one, do food. If you can two, do food and exercise, because that will both of those will probably help a lot with the stress. And then you can work on the things that are less sexy, like sleep and stress and those kind of things. But to me, I would say those two things. And I'm sure you've got some amazing tips and advice for people also. But for
I
me, that's
I
great.
100% agree with that, and I'm very in alignment with that. I think food is number 1, like, by far, and in the US, our food is horrible.
Yes.
Than 5% of our food in the US is organic. A lot of it is filled with covered in pesticides, preservatives, artificial flavors, and then even less, it's like 1% of food or less is actually grown in nutrient dense soil. So that's what I'm starting to learn about is the soil health, where
Yep.
the quality of the food is only as good as the quality of the soil it's in. So food is number 1. Food is fuel, and then also like you said, exercise, movement.
Yeah.
And I think people overcomplicate it where it's like just do something active. You don't have to hit train 5 days a week or run a marathon. Just literally just be active 3, 4 days a week and do something you enjoy. Like I like basketball, football, hikes. Um, but you nailed it. Number 1 is food. Number 2 is just movement. Move your body. And then number 3 is find ways to reduce stress.
Yeah.
So
Lance, too, I'm the kind of person I always say, we only have so many hours in the day. What's something you can do with something else? I'm a big habit stacker or a big
yes.
person that says, and what about just saying to all your neighbors, hey, I'm going to walk at 5 a.m. if any of you want to walk with me? There's a really good chance you will not only get your exercise in, but you'll get a deal. You'll get a transaction.
Mhm.
So, think outside of the box and say, if they say, I don't have time for that, you could say, well, what about if you just put it out to your whole database and your whole neighborhood where there's lots of houses and lots of people that also need to exercise, and you make an invitation. Now all of a sudden you're leaching and you're exercising at the same time.
Yeah, I actually remember that story during a bold session where one of the teachers said, like, this is how this person lead gens. She combined that. She was unhealthy. She wanted to walk. So she got her whole neighborhood. They would all walk. And that's where she got a lot of deals from. And they said she wasn't strong enough to walk for herself and exercise for herself, but she was strong enough to do it for others. And she created that accountability by doing that, and it got her healthier and got her business. It's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love those kind of things.
Well, awesome. That is all I have, but I wanted to promote your next challenge. So, do you know when and where can people find out about?
Yes, the best thing to do is on Instagram at McKissack Linda. It's somewhere in there, so he knows. Somewhere in my Instagram, she has it up there, but you can click on it. And I think we have a wait list that's already started for the next challenge. The next challenge is the second week of June, but we have them going on a regular basis, so you can always find a place to. And if they follow me on Instagram, you'll also hear me talking about them right before one's coming up.
Awesome. I'll get all your info and links and I'll put it in the
Yep.
show notes.
Yep.
And I highly recommend it. I did it myself. It definitely got me out of my comfort zone and to start
Yes.
and launch things that
I'm so
are
excited. Thank you for sharing your win, because that's what makes me happy. That's why I do these, is to hear that now you're committed and you've said it out loud to your audience and myself to do your first challenge. So when is that first challenge?
Monday, June 8th is
Monday,
starting.
June 8th.
Yeah.
Okay, so a week before mine, I think. I don't know. Is that the first week or second week of June? Well, maybe we'll be doing them at the same time. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
So that's great, Lance. Well, thank you. I'm excited for you.
Awesome and super excited. Thanks for like you've just been an inspiration for one, me doing my challenge and also in profit share. And I'm an avid listener to the podcast. So I'll also put those links in the show notes. But thank you so much, Linda. It has been a blast.
My pleasure. Good to see you again, Lance.
One.